Hello. This is a sermon focusing on the Gospel of Matthew, 25th chapter, and the parable of the talents. In this parable, of course, we look at making sure we use our God-given resources, making sure that we are the people of blessing that Jesus calls us to be with everything we have. Now, to begin, I'm going to read from Judges, chapter 4. After Ehud died, the Israelites once again did evil in the eyes of the Lord. So the Lord sold them into the hands of Jabron, king of Canaan, and reigned in Hazor. The commander of his army was Sisera, who lived in Hagosheth Hagoyim, because he had 900 iron chariots, and had cruelly oppressed the Israelites for 20 years. They cried to the Lord for help. Deborah, a prophetess, the wife of Lamedah, was leading Israel at the time. She held court under the palm of Deborah near Ramah and Bethel in the hill country of Ephraim, and the Israelites came to her to have their disputes settled. She sent for Barak, son of Abinoam, from Kadesh and Naphtali, and said to him, "The Lord, the God of Israel, commands you, go take with you 10,000 men in Naphtali and Zebulun, and lead the way to Mount Tabor. I will lure Sisera, the commander of Jabrin's army, with his chariots and his troops to the Kishon River, and give them into your hands." Barak said to her, "If you go with me, I will go. But if you don't go with me, I won't go." "Certainly, I will go with you," said Deborah. "But because of the course you are taking, the honor will not be yours, for the Lord will deliver Sisera into the hands of a woman." So Deborah went with Barak to Kadesh. There Barak summoned Zebulun and Naphtali, and 10,000 men went up under his command. Deborah also went up with him. And our gospel reading, the parable of the talents. Jesus said, "Again it will be like a man going on a journey, who called his servants and entrusted his property to them. To one he gave 5 talents of money, to another 2 talents, and another 1 talent, each according to his ability. Then he went on his journey. The man who had received the 5 talents went at once and put his money to work and gained 5 more. So also the one with 2 talents gained 2 more. But the man who had received the 1 talent went off, dug a hole in the ground, and hid his master's money. After a long time, the master of those servants returned and settled the accounts with them. The man who received 5 talents brought the other 5. 'Master,' he said, 'you entrusted me with 5 talents. See, I have gained 5 more.' His master replied, 'Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share in your master's happiness.' The man with the 2 talents also came. 'Master,' he said, 'you entrusted me with 2 talents. See, I have gained 2 more.' His master replied, 'Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share in your master's happiness.' Then the man who received the 1 talent came. 'Master,' he said, 'I know that you are a hard man, harvesting where you have not sown, and gathering where you have not scattered seed. So I was afraid and went out and hid your talent in the ground. See, here is what belongs to you.' His master replied, 'You wicked, lazy servant. So you knew that I harvest where I have not sown, and gather where I have not scattered seed. Well then, you should have put my money on deposit with the bankers, so that when I returned, I received it back with interest. Take the talent from him and give it to the one who has the 10 talents. For everyone who has will be given more, and he will have in abundance. Whoever does not have, even though he has what he has, will be taken from him. And throw that worthless servant outside into the darkness, be weeping and gnashing of teeth. There are two main points today for our scripture readings, and those are, you have talents, and you must use them. God has given us much in this life, all the resources we have, those gifts and abilities that are really that we ourselves have and can share and bless the world with. Indeed, I bet you have a lot of talents. Just think about all the talents you have, all different abilities and skills that you can bless this world with and have blessed the world with throughout your life. Take a moment and think about them. You can pause the video and just start writing some down to get a list and an idea of how many talents you do have. And there's lots of talents and skills and abilities in this world. Many things that God blesses us with that we're really good at. They can be something like auto mechanics, baking, mathematics, leadership skills, speaking, singing. All kinds of different talents are out there. So why don't you just take some time and think about the talents that you have. There are so many talents that we have. So many ways that we can bless the world. Bless the world with all that we have been given by God. For our parable today is about being responsible for what we have been given by the Lord. Now, the parable of the talents in Matthew 25 is actually part of a series of 3 parables that Jesus tells about what his second coming will be like. Now, the one that precedes it, the parable of the bridesmaids, is about being ready for his return, because when Jesus comes again, it will be unexpected. So people must be ready. They must be ready with being faithful, with looking to him, with knowing Christ. They must be ready. And in the parable of the talents that we see today, we learn that what we are given in life, we are held responsible for. We must be focused on him and how he will be, or how we should be responsible for when Jesus returns again. Now, the word talent that is used in the gospel reading today is actually a unit of measurement of money, is actually a weight. Now, often we think of talents, and of course, when I started the sermon, I asked you about your talents. You thought of them as your skills, your gifts, and abilities. Actually, this parable of Jesus we see today, the parable of talents, the reason the word talent means what it does in English is because of this parable. The idea of those God-given things that you have, those wonderful blessings and abilities, your talents. Now, as I said, in the parable, the talent is a unit of money. Now, a talent being a unit of money would be anywhere from 71 to 96 pounds of a precious metal. So if you can imagine 96 pounds of silver or gold, can you imagine how much either of those would be worth? Like, if you had 96 pounds of gold, how much money do you think you might have? Well, here we see with that illustration of what a talent is, the master is very generous with each of his servants, even the servant that got only 1 talent. Now, in the parable, the servants, the first 2 servants, they are given the talents, that big bunch of money, and they go and make more. They use what they have. They use those resources that the master has given them. And so there's more. More and more gets generated. There is an abundance. Now, it's interesting the reaction of these 2 men when they see the master. They say, when they see the master and they settle the accounts, they go to the master and say, "You've given me this much. Look how much I got more with what you've given me." There's exuberance. There's a joy. And of course, the master shares that joy. He says, "Well done, good and faithful servant. Come into your master's happiness." Now, the third servant, the one that was only given 1 talent, he has a different way he approaches the master when the accounts are settled. He approaches the master and says, "Master, I knew you were a hard man, harvesting where you have not sown and gathering where you have not scattered seed. So I was afraid and went out and hid your talent in the ground. See, here is what belongs to you." This reasoning, of course, does not work on the master, because if that third servant truly knew the master, he would know that he should go and use what he was given. He should not be fearful, but be bold. Now, in life, there's lots of things that will stop us from using our talents. Really, talents and resources and all we have. And this third servant is a good illustration of two of the big things. Now, first is fear. Fear will stop us from moving forward. Fear will stop us because we think that we will fail. We think that we're not good enough. We think that we can't invest and take that risk. Fear stops us from using our talents. Now, the second thing that stopped the servant in the parable was laziness. If the servant really wanted to do something with his talent, if he really thought he should do something with it, he would have tried. He would have got off his rear and, well, did something with it, as opposed to just digging a hole in the ground and just leaving it there, untouched, unused. Fear, laziness, the pressures we feel in this world, thoughts that we're not good enough. All of these things can come together and stop us from using our talents. What stops you? Right now in your life, is there something that stops you from using the gifts that you have? From feeling that you're not good enough to do great things in this world? Even though they might seem small, they're still important in God's kingdom. And what you have must be used. As I said, that is the point. The two main points of our prayer in this message today. You have talents, and you must use them. Never let fear stop you. Never let your doubt stop you from going what God calls you to do. Just like Barak in our reading from Judges today. Now, Judges, our reading, takes place when the Israelites were ruled by judges. These were leaders that were kind of chosen by God. They were inspired by God, and they ruled the nations every so often. A judge would rise up, and then another would come. It's not like a king where there'd be a line of succession or anything like that. Well, the judge at this time is Deborah. And Barak is told by Deborah that he's supposed to go lead an army. He's supposed to go do this thing against the enemies of Israel. But what does Barak do? He goes, no, I won't go. I won't go unless you come. Barak doubted that he could do it. He doubted that God was sending him to do something for the nation of Israel. That fear that stopped him. Those doubts that stopped him. We must never let fear and doubt stop us from using our God-given talents. Stop us from doing the things we know that God has called us to do. So, look at your talents, what you have, and use them. Use them wisely. Wisely, just like the two servants who got those talents from the master and increased them more and more, so they're double what was originally given. And when you use your resources, because remember, the talents are money, and our resources fit into everything we have. That's our money, our time, our talents, our energy. All things. We had to have a God focus, a wonderful God focus that uses things correctly, because we can use our resources in the wrong way. Just like the third servant in the parable used his talent the wrong way. So you must be wise. Wise with the resources you have. Wise so they're used correctly. Wise so they bless the world. Because if not, well, you might get in trouble and you waste resources. A Major General Kirks was visiting an army base, and the unit commander there really wanted to impress the Major General. So he used a bunch of resources of the base to make a big welcome for the general. He even had the men at the base line up along the driveway up to the main office so that when General Kirk rode in his sedan, he would see all these men lined up for his big welcome. Well, there's a couple problems with this. Now, first, General Kirk's, whenever he was passed by a man standing on the driveway, he had to, of course, salute them. They saluted him, he saluted back. And going up the driveway, he had to keep going. And the general's a little irritated about that. And then when he got to the head office where the unit commander was, the unit commander got up to Kirk's to greet him out of his car, and General Kirk said, "Why aren't these men at their jobs?" The unit commander was not wise with the resources, and he certainly wasn't wise with how he'd make the general's mood. There's lots of ways we use our resources. We use them wrongly, or think that we have to do it one way or another that is not guided by God. Because the thing is, we have to look inside and all we have, see what gifts and talents we do have, and use them. Use them wisely, and use them to bless this world. For that is what we do. We see our gifts, we look at them, and we use them in this world as something we must do. Now, in the book Gifts of Grace by Mary Schramm, she suggests 5 steps to discovering and using your gifts. Now, step 1 is to discover your gifts through other people. Very rarely do we understand our gifts by ourselves. People help and support us. They help us understand the gifts that we do have and how they can become something more. And lots of people do this. Our parents, our teachers, our coaches, our fellow teachers in church, your friends, so many people can help you discover and use your gifts. Now, the next step is to accept the gifts that God has given you. And in this step, you accept what God has given you and also what God has not given you. People are different. God has blessed people with different skills and abilities, and we must understand that truth. Not all of us are the same. Not all of us have the same gifts. And so we must recognize the ones we do have and, of course, use them well. Use them, and the third step, enjoy our God-given gifts. Because we are supposed to enjoy and love the task that God has put before us. Enjoy the way that we can bless others. See around and the wonderful impact that we make. Because when you use your talents, when you use your gifts and abilities, when you use your resources, you bless the world. You bless the entire world. You bless the country, United States of America, the state of Pennsylvania. You bless, well, the county that you're in, or wherever you are in this world listening to this sermon. You create a blessing when you love and enjoy the gifts that God has given you. For when you enjoy them, you spread them. You spread them and become a stronger person that develops their gifts. Now, step number 4 is to mature or develop the gifts. Now, like all gifts, they need to be put to work to grow. Nothing becomes stronger without work and investment and energy. Just to rely on talent and avoid the hard work of just developing that gift will lead you nowhere. But we are to use our talents and increase them and to do the good work. Now, step number 5 is to give all your gifts to God. In other words, what you have, you focus on God. You focus on Him and give your gifts to Him. That means you do the mission and work of Christ. So you use what you have. What you know you have, your abilities and gifts. You use that or don't. By giving them to the mission and service of Christ, you see how much you benefit this entire world, how much you bless all those around you. Now, these steps are a way to recognize your gifts throughout your life. Those wonderful talents that you have. You can do so much. And as you look at this list, I hope you are getting an understanding of what you might be able to do with the gifts that you do have. The ones that you know you've had for a while, or ones you're developing right now. Because the joyous things about our gifts, our talents, and our resources, God continually gives them to us. There's continuously new and exciting ways that God blesses us. And the reality is that when we use those gifts, when we take those steps to develop and discover them, we are blessed. We are blessed with more, just like the two good servants in the parable that we see this day. God has gifted us all. God has gifted us all with many talents and resources, so much that we have. So we must use them, and use them wisely. Use them and accept that, yes, we are a people gifted by God. All those things flow from Him, and we must use them. So this day, use your gifts. Use your talents, because God will say to you, what did you do with what I gave you in life? This day, you and always, know that you have been blessed with much, and know by virtue of using what you have, using your talents, you are blessed in God's kingdom. You are rewarded in God's kingdom. You are rewarded here on this earth and in eternity. Eternity where you will hear God say, well done, good and faithful servant. Come share in your master's happiness. Amen.